The most important distinction between a manufactured guitar and a guitar like Chris's isn't just the price tag or the durability of the headstock. It's the big three of attention to detail, masterful craftsmanship, and extensive knowledge of this craft of luthery. All three of which I'm just a baby in. However, at the end of the day, when a guitar gets placed into the hands of the player, it is up to the player to decide the value. And sometimes that decision is through ignorance. I know I bought a guitar that I thought was pretty good despite it having hardly any resonance and being damaged from the start. But it was on sale and I ended up loving that guitar for years. It had value to me, even though objectively it had some problems. And now that I'm learning how to build guitars, it makes me realize just how decent this guitar is. I picked that one up in Japan in the spring of 2025, and the more I learn about building guitars and the more I look at this one, the more I realize that it did an incredible job. It has incredible craftsmanship and it's done many things right. However, there is a limit to manufactured guitars. And that limit lies in the fact that manufacturers have to work in this assembly style workflow, which doesn't allow time for every individual guitar to get the treatment it needs to be able to unlock its full sonic potential. One process of guitar making that seems to really suffer from this assembly style workflow is a process called voicing. What is voicing? Voicing is a process that deals with the internal bracings of the guitar. We're trying to shave down material in order to find a balance between stiffness and flexibility. The soundboard with no bracing, very flexible. This is just for demonstration purposes only. If we put bracing on it, all of a sudden it becomes much more rigid, right? And that's kind of the point, is to stop the guitar from collapsing when we put strings on it. This is what I've been told. The reason why this process of voicing suffers in a manufactured guitar is because manufacturers have a very high demand, and so they need to pump out guitars as quickly as possible, and they need to keep the cost low so that average consumers can afford them. So in an attempt to keep the cost low and production high, they had to average out the bracing. So they tend to be a little bit stiffer than they need to be. Well, honestly, that's fine that manufacturers had to average out the bracing, because that means that private luthiers now have a secret weapon to make their guitar standing out, and that is giving the guitar its voice. My name is Corey. I'm teaching myself how to build acoustic guitars, and this is episode 5 of guitar build number 4. And today I'm sharing the lessons I learned while trying to voice my guitar. I had 0 questions going into this. I knew I was going to start with the X bracing, and I knew I was going to start with the bridge plate. But as I started looking at the wood, all of a sudden I had a lot of questions. Is the height different for the band? What angle do I need to X brace? How do I shape the top part of the brace? What kind of motion? What is my somewhere down? How do I notch the tone bar? Where do I shape the tone? I don't know where thoughts come from, but I do know that I can pick which ones to listen to, and so I threw away most of them and instead just focused on what looks like a good angle for the X bracing and how do I get that joint clean. I tried it once, didn't like it, tried it twice. There's no structure in it. Still didn't like it, tried it 3 times. I actually cracked it a little bit. And it wasn't until my 4th attempt that I decided on a 90-degree angle, because I was simply begging for simplicity at this point. And all that effort just to mess it up with the end cap. And so I made another one. Now is a good time to introduce some tools. This and this bottom one are called radius sanding dishes. So this is a 30-foot radius, meaning if you were to take a ball that was 30 feet in radius and throw it into the sand at a beach, that concave that the ball would make is what radius this is. It's this curve. The radius dish for the back of the guitar is 15 feet, the one for the front is 30 feet, and the reason is threefold. No, fourfold. It looks nice, it improves the sound. The other is that it adds strength. And 4 is that it makes it more comfortable for the player. We add this curvature into the guitar is we have to first add these radius onto the bracings. And the way that we do that is we very gently start sanding down the bottom of the braces until they fit the radius. The important part here is to not push down too hard in the center because you might create a false radius. And then after we've cut all the bracing, radiused all the bracing, we are now finally still not ready to glue it onto the soundboard. Every single piece of bracing needed to be radiused and tucked into the X bracing. Now is a good time to mention that I'm following along with Chris Alvarado. He uploaded 19 hours worth of footage on how he builds his guitars. I've been using it as a masterclass. So go check out his channel. Understand just how great of a luthier he is and just how much more I have to learn. And link will be in the description, as always. With that being said, he tucks his bracing in a lot better than I did. He also doesn't go all the way through. I didn't realize that until just recently, months after the fact. And so going forward, I want to change how I did that. That was my first time ever doing it, and I have a lot of room for improvement. And now, after days of work, we can finally use my favorite tool and get these braces glued onto the soundboard. Okay, I need a stronger go bar deck. For those of you who are familiar with bracing systems, especially the Martin X bracing, you might notice that the transfer brace on my guitar looks a little bit different. It's like opposite of what normally you would have. Normally you would have like thin ends and a thicker middle. But the way that Chris does it is he has a thinner middle and thicker ends. And thinking about it, that kind of just makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, this is the only way I could find to explain this. This is our transfer brace, okay? The top of the fretboard is going to go down onto the soundboard. It's going to put downward pressure onto this transfer brace through the soundboard. Now, when you do that, watch how this end wants to go out, right? See how it moves out? But what happens if you put a block there, like a wall of a guitar, you know? It's effectively no different from the wall. Now, if I try to push down on it, it becomes very strong, doesn't it? This transfer brace is effectively no different in my mind. I think that it's kind of archy, because you have thicker ends and a thinner middle, and so if the fretboard pushes down on it, then it's going to transfer the force sideways and hit the walls and stop, and that's going to add a lot of structure to it. So that makes so much sense. Why would we make the ends of it thin if it's a structural piece? Chris, I think you have a point.
Okay, the video is starting to drag on quite a bit, and so the last part, before we can move on to the next step, is we need to voice this guitar. This is what I've been told the most important part of the tone for the guitar. You're giving the guitar its voice, and the way we do that is by taking off material, right? And so instead of going into all the specifics of it, because I don't know the specifics of it, I don't know if I take off material from the tone bar, like how's that shaping the tone? I don't know. I've been told that that's something I will pick up just by building a bunch of them. But it seems kind of like the only thing I can do right now is try to increase the resonance and the responsiveness of the guitar, and we do that by making the top more flexible. And so I'm just going to think about what areas need to be the strongest, and if an area can take off material or afford to lose material, be more flexible, then I'm going to take off material. And so kind of just keeping in mind not so much about the sound of the guitar, because I don't know how to do that, but instead just the responsiveness of it. With that being said, this is the end of the video. Enjoy maybe a couple moments of me just shaving off material, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks. Bye.